South Dakota overwhelmingly passed both medical and recreational cannabis into law on ballot initiatives for the 2020 election cycle, with medical garnering 70% support from voters and recreational at 53%. However, the state's then newly elected 33rd governor felt her God never would have allowed that shit to go down on his watch. So, fresh off Christy Nome's weekend sabbatical filled with puppy killings and personal reflection with her good friend and total bastion of morality, Herschel Walker, who'd flown up to fail at co campaigning and rallying for both his own failed Georgia senatorial and Trump's failed presidential races that year, felt
He didn't fail.
felt her God would have never allowed that shit to ever happen.
He didn't fail.
So, what did she do? Chrissy Nome instigated the legal fight to strike down the amendment passed by voters that November, though the Republican governor opposed marijuana legalization as a social ill. Her administration's arguments in court centered on technical violations to the state constitution. The High Court of South Dakota sided with those arguments in a 4-1 decision, ruling that Measure A or Amendment A would have violated the state's requirement that constitutional amendments deal with just one subject. Chrissy Nome, y'all. But per AP News' Jack Dura, measure backers tried again back in 2022, and voters defeated that proposal. In 2021, Nome sought to delay legalization of medical marijuana by a year, a proposal that died in the Republican-led slature. And 3 years have passed since that last attempt, and maybe the third time is a charm. Because according to Dura and Summer Ballantyne's AP report yesterday evening, South Dakota voters will be deciding again whether to legalize adult use cannabis. And on Monday, Secretary of State Monet Johnson's office validated a measure for the November general election ballot. The South Dakota measure would legalize recreational marijuana for people 21 or older. The proposal has possession limits of 2 ounces of marijuana in a form other than concentrated cannabis and cannabis products, and also allows cultivation of plants with restrictions. The article says that measure backers plan to work with the legislature to implement business licensing, tax, and other regulations if successful. Zebediah Johnson, political director for the campaign to legalize recreational marijuana, it's a mouthful right there, said in a statement that his organization firmly believes that South Dakotans deserve to make their own choices on how they live their lives, including the freedom to responsibly use cannabis. Opponent Jim Kenyon, chairperson of Protecting South Dakota Kids, you don't say, Jim, said that the state's voters already had a say on the issue and rejected recreational marijuana back in 2022 and criticized supporters' repeated efforts to put the issue to a vote. How many times does the state of South Dakota need to reject recreational marijuana before the industry will accept the decision of the state's citizens? Kenyon said. I expect the industry will triple down on their money to try and sway and dissuade voters, Protecting South Dakota Kids chairperson said. Other initiated measures on South Dakota's ballot this fall are ones to protect abortion rights, to repeal the state food tax, and to implement a top 2 primary election system. It's going to be an election year, and it's going to be crazy up in South Dakota. All 12 people out there. Well, maybe a little weed drama in Mount Rushmore states, just what Christy Noem needs as she digs her heels in to prepare for the final elimination round of Donald Trump's 2024 second loser in command VP sweepstakes. She's been on the wrong side of the news lately following the release of her memoir, which, among other things, included self-snitched excerpts about murdering puppies and quickly debunked lies about meeting Trump's consensual North Korean love letter pen pal, Kim Jong-un. But what do you guys think? Adult use in South Dakota and ballot for the 3rd time in 4 years. Will it pass? And if it does, will it stay passed? I'm Rico Lamite, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News. Let's talk about it.
Oh man, Rico. I mean, I'm nervous that if this passes, if she'll allow this to continue to go through. I mean, the people have already spoken on this issue. Yeah, the people have already spoken on this issue, and I don't appreciate Governor Christy Noem rejecting the people's will.
she's going to take this ballot initiative out to that gravel pit, put a bullet in it.
Yeah.
Yo, what was the
Exactly.
name of that? What was the name of that guy? Jebediah Springfield. What was it?
Yes,
It was like some Simpsons character
Jebediah-
that like
Jebediah Springfield.
Jebediah Springfield. Yeah.
I mean, there's like, how many operators are there in South Dakota? I mean, we know that Montana has a burgeoning industry. They actually grew some, like, the most cannabis in the whole country, for like
Really?
some consecutive years running. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's hemp, but
Before
the
Kanye West went out there?
THCA boom really changed that, right? So, I mean, adoption of these things is not like in itself a crime, but it's pejorative still in those places. They're, obviously South Dakota politics are pretty rife with controversy, some racism, I'm sure. So it's tough. What are you going to do in a place like that other than just wait it out? Landowners are the majority there, and they're the ones that are voting, and we know how that goes. Even in places like California, some of those conservative cities and counties in Northern California, we're the first ones to put people away or let federal, agencies raid and prosecute some of those business owners. So, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise when these things don't happen. So all I gotta say to the operators there is like, bide your time. Don't, just keep doing your thing, because I'm sure that there's structure around the way they also prosecute anything that they deem as illegal there. But it's probably going to be a slap on the wrist comparatively. So
We gonna see. Yarrow?
Any thoughts on this, Yarrow?
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that they already passed it and it already approved, and then it was struck down by the courts. And so
Yeah, exactly.
that to me is the most relevant thing about this article, because in my opinion, it shows where the will of the populace was and is. And so if the voters passed something and it was struck down by the and the voters passed something and it was struck down by the courts, that means that it was poorly drafted, but not that the population didn't believe in the spirit of that initial measure. And so that was almost a half a decade ago. And so
but Yarrow, on this one, it was I think it was like a lower district or municipal court, like somebody sued against it, and she brought that up, and she raised that up to the Supreme Court, and she's the one who got it revoked.
Right,
Like in no other circumstances was it going to get revoked. In no other circumstances was it going to get pulled. This was her saying that she prayed on it, and God told her that it ain't right for the children of South Dakota.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to public policy, when it comes to public policy, I'm not sure that prayers are the first step. But I appreciate people with faith. I just think we need to couple it with a bit more than just faith. And the thing is that I'm hopeful that it passes. It does include possession of a couple ounces. It does include some path towards home grows, which I think are really important for any program. If you don't have a home grow, then it feels like it's an industry-driven approach to legalizing cannabis. So I mean, let's get ready for South Dakota's cup scene, their amazing flower, like less people in jail, cops being used and their resources on other pressing societal issues. I'm optimistic, and sometimes I actually think that opposition is a benefit because it polarizes people and it gives them something to push back against. I think about that a lot when I think about that governor down in Florida.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. It's funny that you say that because I see something similar happening here with Kristen Bloom, because I think she's going to get dropped from the VP race, and she's going to go back bitter as hell.
She's already been dropped. She's already been dropped. Marco Rubio is going to be the VP.
What?
Oh God! Oh God!
Marco Rubio.
What?
Little Marco.
Little Marco.
Little Rubio.
Little Marco. Little Marco.
These guys.
Yo, I'm curious.
Is he replacing Kamala?
Yeah. These guys have no balls, man. Like after Trump just totally dismantles you and talks about your wives, talks about everything in your life.
Pathetic.
You go back and you
pathetic.
Fucking
it is pathetic. Politicians are pathetic. For sure.
They are pathetic.
They are pathetic. I have a question for you, Rico, on the story. South Dakota, what did they say anything about like Native Americans doing any, like starting their own dispensaries on Native land that is not under the same control from the governor's office? I mean, can't they do?
It's funny that you say that because Kristi Noem is banned from all the reservations in her own state.
Right.
I mean,
right, that's right. Yeah.
She's banned, really?
Yes.
I think it's going to come out that Kristi Noem and Glenn Youngkin are having an affair.
Yeah,
We're going to cancel cannabis laws around the country.
Reservation ban. She's not allowed to go to the reservations.
Yeah.
So she don't even talk about them. They're like Bruno in the state. She don't talk about.
Only dad. Hey, dad jokes only work with people with kids. Come on, Rico.
I think it makes her a stronger candidate for VP because Trump can't go to 37 countries now either. So they got something in common.
I mean, we came up with a new term for with what's going on with Trump. We're calling it White House arrest.
Oh, I thought it was karma.
Who's doing your writing these days, Jason?
You like that, huh?